Okay, well, we'll just go ahead and get going. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Um, my name's Kayla Sanders, and we've got members of the Genesis Board with us today to present on finances. I think we should just go around the Genesis Board, introduce yourself really quickly, and then we will get started. Pamela, you want to start?
Yes, Pamela Wilting. I teach P1s, compounding at the University of Iowa College of Pharmacy, and I'm a medical science liaison at Immunocore in oncology.
All right. And Emily.
Good evening, Emily Viberberg. I currently work in physician assistant education at the University of Dubuque. Happy to see you all.
David?
Hey guys, my name is David Hotland. I'm an emergency medicine pharmacist and emergency medicine PGY2 program director at UW Health Swedish American Hospital in Rockville, Illinois.
And last but not least, Brandon.
Hello, what's going on, everybody? Brandon Gerleman, Senior Product Manager on the Payer Products team for Outcomes.
Okay. And Brandon and David are going to be presenting for you today, so I'm going to hand it over to them.
Awesome. Let me see if I can share my screen. Whoa, that was a big screen it got over here. Let's see how this works.
Well, Brandon's getting us queued up. Do any students have any questions just off the bat? We'll take questions at the end and obviously and throughout it. But we just want to make sure we write anything down so me and Brandon could be thinking about kind of answers for you if anyone has anything right off the bat.
It's not necessary. Sorry, Cole Ludoff. Not necessarily a question right off the bat, but if we do have a question during the presentation, how do you want in the chat? Do you want us to raise our hand? How do you want us to go about that?
I would say not in the chat because I feel like I'm not going to be able to see that very well. So I'd say, yeah.
I can monitor the chat.
Okay, yeah. Or raise your hand or.
I can see it on my side too, Brandon.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see the screen and I can see the chat at the same time too, so I can kind of monitor the chat too.
Is it showing the presentation?
Yes.
Yep.
Hey, I have passed that one today.
No, it's showing all of your passwords.
Probably, yes. Yeah. Good thing I use my sister's social security number as all my passwords. No, we made this on PowerPoint, then put it on Drive, so like a Google Drive for David and I to work on it. Then it kind of, I'm trying to present from that because if it shows up a little bit funky. So, well, welcome to SuccessRx Finances. This is kind of a concoction that both David and I kind of felt like during school we didn't get a whole lot around, kind of the finances portion of it, student loans, budgets, things to think about. And we had the perfect platform to do it here. So really looking forward to, we put together a nice slide deck. I got some good visuals in there. You'll see that David and I have kind of two different paths, which I think will be valuable to everybody, all the students here, and just really want a discussion. So look at that. There's our fancy background. And I kind of already did my little introduction there, but I'll just mention a quick on the student loan journey, loan debt journey. So I graduated in 2017 with my PharmD from Iowa, and I will have refinanced my student loans 6 times. I graduated with about 165,000 in student loans, and those are all just from pharmacy school. I didn't was fortunate enough to have my my undergrad paid for via my parents. So pharmacy school is all me. And I will have mine hopefully paid off within the next year. My guidelines are 10 months from now is what my crystal ball is telling me. So cut it from a 10-year to a 6.5, 7-year student loan journey. And David.
Yeah, so fortunately for all of you guys, me and Brandon took different paths, both career-wise and also student loan journey-wise. So as I said, I'm currently doing emergency medicine in Rockford, but I got my PharmD in 2013 from the University of Iowa. I did 1 year PGY1 at the University of Kansas Hospital in Kansas City. And yeah, my student loan debt journey. So I'm actually doing the PSLF program. I was not as fortunate as Brandon. I had to pay for my undergrad, and I actually paid out of state because I'm from the suburbs of Chicago. So out of state for undergrad. For pharmacy school, I actually found out right before I got in that if you were a teaching assistant or a research assistant graduate, you actually qualified for in-state tuition at the time. So I found a lab job out in the Coralville Research Campus working in immunology. We did graft versus host disease and trying to come up with an assay. It was actually a super fun job. Worked 10 hours a week there, and it got me in-state tuition for P1, P2, P3 year. Couldn't do a P4 year because of rotations, which kind of sucked. So it put me back out to out-of-state tuition for just the final year of pharmacy school. So when you run the register, cha-ching, grand total 225 when I got done. So a little bit more than Brandon. So we'll talk a little bit about how I went about figuring out what was the best route for me, but public service loan forgiveness was the route I took.
Yes, super valuable to kind of get two perspectives. Through this disclaimer in there, we are not financial advisors. We are just two pharmacists that have gone through and kind of learned on the fly, and just want to spread the learnings and advice to the next generation. So nothing here is say, don't take our advice and just do it on a whim. We just want to give pointers. We want to give as much education as possible for what they don't teach you in school. A little bit about the landscape. So on the left, this is the average pharmacist salary, and that's off of 2021. The Bureau of
Hey, Brandon.
Yeah.
Hey, the slides aren't advancing.
What? You can't see the cool arrows pointing to each other?
I see it.
Nope,
I don't
we're
know.
on Oh, you can? I just got the disclaimer somehow.
Oh, it's
Is
just
everybody
you.
on the right slide?
Okay, everybody
Yeah,
say
I
I got
am.
Oh
them.
man, all right. I'm just slow. Okay.
Well, luckily you have the slide deck. We can just fly. So on the left, you're seeing the average pharmacist salary, and on the right, you're seeing the average pharmacist student loan debt. You'll notice that a little bit heftier on the right side of the screen, right? So that average student loan debt being around 170,000, and average pharmacist salary being around 128,000. So throwing out there, like, what actions are you guys going to take? That can be a little bit of a mountain. So a little bit overwhelming. So how are you going to tackle that, or have you thought about tackling that? Let's do it. We're going to do a little bit of a, and I don't even know, I probably breezed through this slide. Oh, I did. I had a little thing about learning objectives. We're going to go through those. Don't worry about it. I felt like, professors like do that in class, and it's like, don't worry. I wanted to set a little overview. So we're going to talk about student loans. I did make this interactive, so I do want participation. So we're using that 170,000 average student loan debt at the 6% interest, which is the average interest rate right now. And we're going to say this, Jessica is doing this student loan repayment 10 years worth at a 6% interest. How much is her monthly payment going to be? A, B, C, or D? You can unmute, you can put it in chat, you can yell it, you can try to sign it. I probably won't know what you're doing, but
I'm fortunate enough Kelsey's on rotation with me, so she's got it up on her screen over here. She was kind of forced to sign in, but
do we have anything in chat? Has anybody given me answers yet? I don't know why I can't see chat, but
Nope, no answers yet.
oh, okay. I'm gonna just pick on someone. Cole, what do you think?
All right, shot in the dark. I'll go with C.
C. I see Stephanie. What do you think? Noah, what do you think?
Um, well, it depends what she wants to do, I think.
I'm just saying she graduates. This is what she's got. 170,000, 6% interest, 10 years. What's her monthly payment?
Oh, 10 years. Yeah, I'm gonna go with D.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it out there. The answer is D. $1,850. So just kind of put that into perspective for you. That might seem a little bit high, right? So just thinking about that, we'll come back to this example. And David, I'll throw it over to you if the slides are advancing on your side. We're on the loan overview federal slide.
They are. I'm back to our introduction slide somehow. So anyway, I have Kelsey's here, so I think we will be good. Actually, it's catching up kind of. And now we're stuck again. Okay. So anyway, for the loan overview, in terms of federal loans, so how you apply through these, you apply for these through FAFSA, through undergrad and through pharmacy school. The source of the funds for these are through the U.S. Department of Education. They fall into a bunch of different loan types. So you could have direct unsubsidized loans, which Brandon put this kind of chart together for us here. It gives you what kind of borrower type you would fall under for this. And the current rate for those are 7.05%. And these accrue interest during school. And that comes from that unsubsidized part. Direct subsidized loans, subsidized. So the government does help you out a little bit with the interest rate. And these are for undergraduate student loans, and they do not accrue interest while you're in school. And then the direct plus loans, these could be for parents that want to help out additionally for your education, but also you can get them for further funds that you may need beyond what they're going to allow you to take for direct unsubsidized or subsidized loans. And these also accrue interest during school. So there's multiple options to repay these loans that are through the government. One of them is the standard repayment plan, which this is going to just set you up to pay them off in 10 years. So whatever your total number is when you get out, divide that by 120 months, and that's what your payment is, in addition to the interest that you're going to owe, but just kind of as a rough estimate. As far as income-driven repayment plan, we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but this is payment based on your income. So, this will depend, when you're in residency, your rate's going to be a lot lower. We'll talk about that a little bit more if you are doing a residency. But if you go right into working, you're going to have a big jump in what your payment will be. So it's kind of hard to predict this until you get what your actual salary is going to be that first year out of school. And then this is usually 25 years in length, the maximum payment term. So everything will be forgiven if you make it to 25 years. There are some changes now with the new SAVE plan that we have noted here. For undergrad loans, I think they're reducing it down to 20 years maximum payment terms on these. But for grad school, it's still going to be 25 years. But it's important to check out, and we'll say this a couple more times, this new SAVE plan if you are going to stick with the government loans part. And then another thing that is I actually just had to resubmit a form for was it also depends on your family size, and that's because they use a poverty cutoff line to determine what your discretionary income is. So we actually just had a little one, so she's 10 months old. I just ended up submitting a new form, and it dropped my monthly payment by a little bit because of that family size increase. So important things to think about when you're going into repayment for federal loans.
And don't worry about taking notes. We'll make sure to send the slide deck out, but just know that we're not trying to teach everything. We're just trying to give here's the big background, here's the big picture. Know enough to be dangerous. I did advance to the next slide, David. The loan overview private.
Cool. Okay, so for loan overview private, this is more the route that Brandon took. You could apply for this from anywhere. And he might have done federal while he was in school. He can speak more to that later. But this is just where you're going to go to Sallie Mae or one of these bigger companies that you need additional funding for. And you apply just as you would for a car loan or anything else. And that's to get funding. And then, repayment is just decided based on whatever company you're going with. and what the interest rate is on that loan. And it's obviously going to start right away. That there's no kind of government protection. So during COVID and that kind of thing, that is something that was a little bit different if you went that route and took additional funds beyond what was able and available to you through the U.S. government.
All right. We're on the next quiz question, David. I feel like I gotta.
Do you want to take the quiz question just so see if mine will catch up?
Sure. So this is a continuation of Jessica. So she's paying $1,850 a month. How much of that first month's payment is going toward interest? And I got the chat up, so people, if they want to throw their guesses in the chat, because I see that we actually had a lot of participation. And I picked on Stephanie, and she was in the car, but she did guess. I'm sorry.
I don't know. Hopefully she's still with us. Texting and driving. No,
she's a passenger, I think, right, Stephanie?
Oh, okay.
So what are people thinking here? I don't know about you guys. I always had like a go-to. If I had legit was guessing in the dark, pharmacy school, it was B for Brandon every time. Just consistency.
Oh.
I
was a C person. It's always C.
And we both graduated and have a Pharm D, so one of the two options is right. All right, we're getting some C, B, B, D, D. The answer is D. So $850 of that first month's payments going toward interest. Just interest. That means the $1,000, only $1,000 is going toward principal. So we're going to keep going back to Jessica as an example, but that's another little visual there. And I threw a quick fact up here. You can deduct up to $2,500 a year in student loan interest on your taxes for private loans there. So it's you think $850, you get a couple months of those, and you're gonna be paying a lot more in interest, but it's still better than nothing. So kind of a fun little tidbit. Payoff strategies. This is David. This is you want me to do the next quiz 1, 2, keep running the quiz and then go back to you?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Cool. All right, we're going back to perfect. We're going back to Jessica. So 170,000, 6 years, or 6% interest, 10 years. What is she gonna pay over the life of that loan? A through D. And I feel like the first two answers I made that were D, so I hope I changed this one. This one up. I see a C. Cole pulled out his calculator and just crunching it real quick. Get rid of the math portion of the NAPLEX. A D, a D, a D. Hey, I did change it. I went to C. So 225,000. So think about that. We graduated with 170,000 in student loans. Our interest ended up being just over $56,000. So total, and I wasn't exactly spot on. I was just using an easy rounding there, but total is 226,000 that we're going to be paying toward that entire loan, interest and principal. So just kind of wrapping our minds around this a little bit. That can kind of, you think, oh, I just graduated with 170. Well, that's actually about $250,000 by the time you're done with this here. Okay, David, kick it away. PSLF.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay. Kelsey said I'm kind of lagging.
There was some choppiness, but you're good now.
I'm good? Okay.
I said that, now you're choppy again.
Yeah. I don't know what the issues are.
Am I choppy? Using up your bandwidth, so you might want to turn off your video.
Is there a word?
Uh-oh, David, can you hear us?
What do you think? How about now?
Better. Okay, try it again. You're off video. Now come off mute. Let's see what you got.
Well, he's working on getting it up again. For whatever reason, it's like frozen.
Oh, well, can you just go off yours? I feel like that's all right. That sounds good.
Can I connect my AirPods?
Yeah, probably.
Look at this. Adversity. Nobody panicked.
I'll be connected. Why don't you tell Brandon, see if he can go past PSLF, and then I'll come back to PSLF.
Okay, I heard him.
Go
Yep.
ahead. Did you hear him?
Okay. Yeah, I did. So David's got 2 slides on PSLF. We'll come back to that because that's his spot, his forte, and his path. So I graduated with federal loans. I refinanced them. They averaged around between 5 and 6%. I refinanced them 6 times, and each time I lowered either the interest rate or the entire term. So right now I'm at a 2.24 with 3 years left on it. So I took it from a 10-year at around 5 to 6 to a now I'm at a 3-year on a 2.24. So I refinance my student loans. So what is that? Refinancing is taking multiple loans, consolidating them into one loan, and then lowering the interest rate or the loan length. It does make it a private loan. So this is the private portion. Can be a good option if you have high interest rates. A good option if you are not going to pursue PSLF. If you go this route and refinance, it pulls you away. You can no longer get the federal. You pull your loans out of the federal hold, so you cannot pursue PSLF. That didn't bother me, but it's worthwhile noting in here. And then if you have a higher debt load, meaning you've got higher potential savings. So if David had his example of more student loans, so he could save even more than I did, right? If that made sense for him. You can refinance as many times as you want to. My gosh, I've done it 6 times. We threw another note on here spelling out that it does disqualify a person from PSLF. And then make sure whoever you're refinancing through has no origination fee. So if you refinance with bank A, B, C, and they have origination fee of $1,000, well, that might not make sense. And that they have no prepayment or early payment penalty. So it can encourage you to pay things off sooner, and you won't get a penalty for that. David, I'm going to keep cranking refinancing, then I'll kick back to you. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds good. I'm back. This might be a less flattering view, but you're good.
Refinancing versus consolidating. What does that mean? What's the difference? Emily's got a high five. And what's your question? What you got?
You probably will answer it, so I can just wait till you finish this section.
Okay. Hold your question, and if I don't, you come back to it. So we'll start on the left. Consolidation is the same thought process of you're combining multiple loans into one loan. You're going to get that weighted average across the interest rates. There's the advantage of instead of having to pay 20 different loans, different interest rates and different payments, you just consolidate it to one. So one single payment. Consolidation still keeps you in the PSLF arena. And then David has a pro tip on here to do this before you start payments for PSLF. So that's worthwhile to mention as well. So you can do consolidation for PSLF. It's not going to change your payment. It's just going to make it from multiple into one, which would make it more manageable.
And Brandon, I'll just add to that, like we talked before. There's certain loans, and you read into this more on the studentaid.gov website, but like Perkins loans and I think it's like FFPL or FFP. I didn't have any FFPL, one of those type of loans. Those don't qualify for PSLF unless you consolidate. And you want to make sure that you consolidate before you start making payments, because it might have changed recently with the new laws, but in the past, if you consolidated your loans, your payment count restarted. So even if you maybe made 50 payments, you'd have to restart. So important to try to figure that out before you start making repayments if you want to get any of those Perkins loans or any of those other special ones into the PSLF program.
That's a good tidbit because I didn't even know that. And then what's refinancing? So refinancing is consolidating plus the ability to change your interest rate or loan length. The advantages there, your same thought process, you're getting that single monthly payment, but then you can refinance to a lower rate. I went from an average of just shy of 6 to now I'm at a 2.24. So I refinanced to a lower rate, and I also took the the loan length down as well. And you can do either or. You can play around with things. There's a lot of cool calculators out there. I think we go into the quiz. So before I jump back to David, Emily, did I answer your question?
Yes. My additional question was, are you able to consolidate now? I know loan payments restarted again at the beginning of September. I have loans from undergrad. Am I able to consolidate those now, or is it better to wait till after graduation when all my loans are in one spot?
Yeah, that a good question. It really comes down to your preference,
Okay.
and the route that you want to take, whether you're going to pursue PSLF or if you're going into more of a retail setting, a place that doesn't allow for PSLF, where then maybe instead of consolidating, you look at refinancing.
Okay.
But it sounds like it doesn't disqualify us, David, from PSLF.
Yeah.
So that might be a
Yeah,
really
and
good.
I would say just to echo off Brandon, I think that you kind of wait and see what your situation's going to be, because if you're just going to consolidate and keep them all federal, even if you do decide to go PSLF route or something like that, it's not really changing anything for you. It's just going to, merge all those loans together. So,
Okay.
and then like Brandon, it might just be more work than is necessary. And to tell you the truth, I actually don't know if you can consolidate while you're still in school. You might be
Okay.
able to, but I'm not sure. But it's just something that you can kind of do once you know your picture, once you graduate, to either go down that refinancing route to consider it, or if you want to like consolidate everything. But I definitely check out the details of it, because I'm not even sure if you can do it now while you're in school.
Okay. Cool. Thank you guys.
See,
And then
that's why we have the
Brandon,
disclaimer. We're not financial advisors. We're just people
yeah,
that are trying to
exactly,
share some advice. Cole's got
exactly.
a hand up. What you got, buddy?
Yeah. So can you just quickly describe what that 224 means? I think you said a couple of times. You said you went to like a 224.
Oh, yeah. So I've refinanced mine from when I graduated at 165,000 with 10 years, and across multiple loans that averaged around just shy of a 6.0%. So I'm currently, and I look at it like every other day, I'm currently at a 2.24% interest rate. So I've refinanced mine down dramatically. So I've dropped nearly four percentage points, which we were in a really weird spot, both on rates being incredible during COVID, and then folks like David that were in the PSLF, that those years counted and those months counted, even though there was a federal pause. So it was a really funky time for that. Both routes were able to kind of take advantage of that. So yeah, 2.24. Sorry, I should have spelled that out. I appreciate the question.
And just to give you guys a hint, we might hit this on another quiz. I don't know. I got lost in our quiz questions, but just to give you an impact. So if we look at our mortgage rates and everything right now, so if you're looking at, a house that's 300, 400, $500,000 for a mortgage, when rates were around 3% to jumping to 6%, it increased your mortgage payment by almost $800 a month just in interest alone. So even though we're talking very small movement in these percentages, like that equals a lot of money per year. So like Brandon said, when he refinanced down to that lower rate, he's saving himself a lot of money on that amount of money that he had in terms of interest every month. So just to give you guys a little example there.
And we do have a quiz question about that. So,
okay, well then maybe I gave you some answers. Maybe
there it is.
There you go.
So David, we're halfway through.
Okay.
If you want to go through,
yeah, I'll hammer these out real quick.
Your PSLF, I butchered that. PSLF.
Yep. So okay, so what is it? So you have to make 120 payments over 10 years. So if you just times 12 times 10 years, who's eligible? You have to have a full-time employment, which would be 30 hours per week minimum, or whatever your employer considers full-time. But it has to be 30 hours per week minimum. And then qualifying organization. So if you have a government job, if you're at a tax exempt, not for profit, so that's what I fall under. My hospital is a not for profit, university owned hospital, or AmeriCorps Peace Corps. Repayment option, you're going to want to do income driven repayment, because that's going to decrease your total amount that you're going to owe over the 10 years. So it doesn't make any sense for me to pay more than what my minimum payment is, because it's all going to get forgiven at the end. And then I put a little pro tip here. It's not required. However, every year you should submit an employment verification form for this. So that's just going to log your payments that you've made throughout the year. I've switched student loan companies 3 or 4 times. I think 3 times they got bought by each other, and now finally one kind of holds the PSLF program. Things are a little bit more squared away now, but I would still recommend an annual certification form, just so you're constantly getting these things logged versus getting to 120 and they say, nope, you have 15 payments that didn't count. So that's a pro tip there. You can go next slide.
Right.
So continuing on with PSLF. So we kind of touched on some of this already. The payment that we're talking about for income driven repayment is typically going to be 5 to 10% of your discretionary income. And that's going to depend on what plan. So with the new SAVE plan that we were talking about that everyone needs to look into, come July of next year, they're going to recalculate people's student loan payments, and they're going to charge you 5% of your discretionary income for any undergrad loans, 10% for any professional or graduate school loans. Pro tip here, we want to try to legally hide as much as we can from the government. So you can lower your adjusted gross income that they calculate this off of by maxing out your 401k or your 403b retirement accounts at work, and your HSA plans. These are all pre-tax deductions. So when it comes tax time, the government doesn't see those. And so that's what they calculate your payment off of. So something to consider. It's important to do the math yourself, decide if PSLF is worth it, and the uncertainty of the government continuing this. It is underwritten in all of our loan agreements. However, we don't know what can happen in the future. And so you got to weigh that for yourself. In 10 years, you think this program's still going to exist. And then finally, a little example at the bottom. So about $250,000 in student loans will yield you a monthly payment without even factoring in interest yet. But just based on that $250,000, $1,300 to $1,600 per month on an income-driven repayment plan. So you gotta kind of decide, is that worth it or not? And me and Brandon earlier when we were meeting, we did a little fun math problem, and we figured out that if you don't consider interest, that's about $180,000. So if you're above kind of that 180, you might want to consider that PSLF might be worth it over a 10-year plan of paying that same rough payment. If you're below that, and do all this math for yourself, like Brandon said, or talk with a financial advisor and see if this is perfectly right for you. But that's kind of what I did. I was like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to pay off what I started with in 10 years, paying a reasonable amount. My payment was going to be like $3,300 a month or something. And so there was no way I was going to make that possible. So taking the gamble on PSLF and everything working out was the way for me to do it. And I didn't mention in the beginning, I have about 105 or 110 payments. So I have about a year left, a little under a year. So next July, I should hopefully get everything forgiven. But one thing about PSLF is they make sure that they dot all the I's and cross all the T's. So you might have read in the news, a lot of people weren't at the right jobs. And again, that certification form, that's where that comes into play. And they find out after 10 years, they didn't qualify for any of it. So make sure you do that.
Yeah, good stuff on PSLF. We hope you're getting some good information here.
Do you want to fly through? Hey, Brandon, you want to fly through the budgets, and then maybe we can skip the last question and just do the tips and tricks and get to questions?
You don't want
unless you want to do the quiz question.
Let's do a minute. Let's do 30 seconds of quiz question. Kind of the example that the same example, 170,000, 10 years. You go from a 6% to a 4.5% interest rate. How much are you going to save on interest? And I'm just going to blow through this so you can see it. It's 15,000. So that's a good chunk of change for only reducing it 1.5%. I threw the actual breakdown on it here to prove that the math works out, but it's 15,000. We have a couple things on. I don't even have this. Is this me or you, David? Budget. I think this is me. Cool. We'll just run with it.
Go for it. Go for it. I'll take over at the tip slide.
Yeah. So we've talked about student loans. We talked about interest. We talked about some kind of repayment plans. Part of that really fundamental is around having a budget. So what is a budget? We've heard it, right? It's a plan that you write down to decide how you are going to spend your money each month. At the end of the day, it's going to show you how much money you're making and how much you're going to spend. And at the end of that, it can help you make an educated decision on where you want to spend that surplus. Hopefully, there's not a deficit there. So spend that surplus to impact kind of things going forward there. Or to identify there's more of a deficit and you need to make some adjustments on the lifestyle. A couple, we threw a budgeting process down on here, but very simplistic. You're taking your take home pay. So at the end of the day, what are you taking home from your position or positions? You're going to determine what's essential, right? Housing, food, transportation, some of these, minimum debt payments, and that's part of housing, car, student loans. Looking at anything discretional. So these are the things that are nice to have, right? Lifestyle, eating out, entertainment, vacations, all the fancy bling stuff, right? And then you're going to determine that disposable income at the end of that. So take home pay minus the two expenses right there is what your disposable income is going to be, and then where are you going to allocate that if you have some extra. So we threw some ideas down there, bolded the getting out of debt portion. We're both kind of hyper focused that way, but there's a number of different things that you can really David, you want to go on mute real quick?
Oh, that's why. I was like, you're sounding like a robot.
Whether it's a backdoor Roth IRA, investments, child 529 plan. I've got two little ones at home as well, right? So trying to figure out where to spend that extra dollars there. And actually, I kick him off to go on mute, and this is his slide. So, David, here you go.
All right, I back off. You started sounding like a robot. I was like, Kelsey, does he sound like a robot? We got to figure it out though. Just tons of tech issues today. All right, so top 5 by the number. So this I feel like is a powerful slide for all you guys. Whether you guys are going to go into doing residency, whether you're trying to budget now as a student, whether you're going out for the job market. These are some big things to consider. So we're just going to run through some top 5 by the numbers. Budgeting. So we want to consider the 50-30-20 rule. This is a rule in personal finance where you look at what you bring in per month, just like Brandon was just talking about, and then you take 50% of that, and that should be what you're spending on your needs. So, all your rent, your car payment, all that stuff, groceries, get everything in there. 30% is for wants. So you can, whatever that is, you're going out money, or, you like to go to concerts, everything should come out of that 30% that you have for kind of whatever you want. If you need a new computer, anything like that. 20% then should be what you're saving. I know that's really hard now if you're a student, but any little bit that you can save now can help in the future. Auto purchases. So now there's something in personal finance called the 23-8 rule. This is important because especially those of you that are P4s and about to go out, especially if you're going into the job market, you're about to go from making pennies to making a decent amount of money. So it's very easy to see what's coming into your bank account and say, let's go buy that new BMW or Mercedes. This is something that you need to factor in. 23-8 rule says that you should put 20% down on your car payment or when you're buying a car. And then you should pay it off within 3 years. And it should be no more than 8% of your gross income per month for your car payment. And that will include both cars in your house if you have fiance or significant other. If you really calculate it out, you'll realize that a lot of people's car payments do not match this. So people are going out 7, 8. I think I even heard almost 9 years. I think they're allowing you to go out to pay for your car, which is insane. And people are still paying like $800 a month on these things. So if you calculate it out, you'll probably, if you're making an average pharmacist salary, will have about roughly $1,000 a month to spend on car payments if you follow this rule. Obviously, it's best to pay cash if you can, but if you got to follow this rule, you'll probably be between $800 and $1,000 a month to stay comfortable. Home purchases, we want to aim for 20% down. 3 to 5% is acceptable for a first home. Market's really rough right now, it could be hard even to come up with that 3 to 5%, but You really need to be saving up a little bit to go down towards it. Total payments, another rule for home ownership. Total payments, that includes taxes, mortgage, everything that comes along with it, plus whatever you can calculate out for maintenance for it, should be no more than 25% of your total take-home pay, or gross income, I'm sorry. So that's before taxes. And then you want to plan to live in the area for at least 5 to 7 years. There's a lot of costs and fees during the purchase, during closing. So that includes, realtor fees and just tons of different documenting fees, like through the government. And so it's really hard to make those up if you don't have enough time to allow your property to appreciate. So want to try to settle somewhere for 5 to 7 years. Otherwise, you're going to want to rent. So especially going for residencies and stuff, we want to rent. Strive to save 25% of your gross income for your future. And then we just listed some options here. Again, thinking about that PSLF, we want to hit those 401ks, 403bs, Roth IRA or traditional IRA accounts, health savings accounts, employee stock purchase plans. I'm not sure if Brandon has access to that being in a private company, but those are something to look into. And then brokerage accounts, which will be kind of all the money you have left over if you can max out all these other things. And then start early and often. You're not, like we said, you're not going to be accustomed to this amount of money that you're going to make when you're a pharmacist. So beware of that lifestyle creep, getting the fancy cars, getting the big houses, and doing all that before you really have a chance to think and, budget out what you actually have. And then finally, emergency fund, top priority. You want to have $1,000 minimum. I would say you should try to even get there as a student. This is going to prevent you from, something coming up. Maybe your cell phone breaks or something. You don't have to put it on a credit card to buy a new phone. That's how people kind of get into the spiral of trouble. So we want to make sure that we have a good emergency fund. And then after you have that $1,000, especially once you get out there into the job market, you want to try to build that to 3 to 6 months of living expenses, mortgage, car payments, student loan payments, groceries, whatever it takes minimally for you to have no fun that month, but just make it without going into any more debt. You want to do 3 to 6 months of that. And just a fun fact here, well, actually a really sad fact, but 50% of Americans can't come up with $1,000 if something were to go wrong. So they can put it on a credit card or, do what they need to do. But if they were like, right now, could you hand me $1,000 cash? 57% of Americans can't do that.
Yeah, that's a really good slide. I hope you digested and soaked up everything that David was the one who's like, we need to have this slide on here. I got some good information. So some really good stuff there. And we'll tie that back into we're almost done, guys, we promise. Tie that back into we have a little tips and tricks slide here. So let's go back to our friend Jessica. She followed our advice. She created a budget. And her idea was to pay some extra dollars toward student loans. That was what she was going to do with the extra. So she is going to continue. She didn't refinance. She's just going to take her $170,000, 6% interest, 10 years, and take her $1,850 payment a month to $2,150, adding $300 extra only toward principal. How much interest does that save, Jessica? And I'm going to fly through this too, just to showcase it. $10,000. So, Kayla answered the $10,000. So just think of that. If you, just to David's point on the last slide, start early and you don't even worry about it. If it's out of sight, you're adding that $300 in there. You don't even see it. Like before you know it, that's just part of how you're budgeting there. And I threw, and you saved just about two years. So because you added extra payments only toward principal, that actually cut down and shaved off time. So I took that 10-year loan to just about an 8-year loan there. Oh no, don't look at the answer. You saw the answer already. So this is the last kind of quiz slide, kind of putting this all together. And this is kind of what I did. So I'll preface that. So we got our friend Jessica. She refinanced. She brought her payment or her interest rate from a 6% to a 4.5%. The exact example we talked earlier. So that reduced her monthly payment. And then she decided to pay instead of just $1,750 she wanted to pay $2,500. So $100 of that is being justified by lowering her interest rate, and then she's only going to add 200 extra. And she's enjoying that lower interest rate, right? So now we have the snowball effect. You're refinancing and having these accelerated payments. So now we're coupling things together. How much money did Jessica save? So I just showed you the last example at 10,000. Oh, there's an optimism. Kayla's going off to the optimism. Yeah, because you saw the answer, I think. 22,000. So this is where it can kind of snowball. So and David used the word spiral. That's maybe a negative connotation. This is snowballing, right? We're pushing this down the hill. So that saved us 18. Oh, and I didn't even update it here. Gosh, don't look at that answer. It's 22,000 and 1.8 years. So we snowballed. We had additive effects there. And we're almost done. David, you want to do the tips and tricks, and we'll make sure we have some time for
sure.
questions.
So just to recap some stuff. Look into loan forgiveness, explore that PSLF option, because especially if you have a high loan amount, like I did, might be worth it. Might kind of, direct you on what kind of job you want to try to look for and see if they're a qualifying employer. Reduce that interest rate. If you do go into kind of private area of practice, private corporate companies, you want to refinance and get that rate down. It might be kind of hard now with our interest environment. So make sure you're comparing. Make sure you don't just move into something else just to move, especially with the rates now. I know back when I was in school, they were coming out with higher percentage loans. Some of you guys might have had undergrad loans and stuff that might be cheaper than what you could even rate finance into now. So definitely check out the interest rates and compare them. Establish a budget. This is going to be one of the most important things. And then make sure you're updating routinely. So every 6 months to a year, make sure you go back and revisit it. We'll give you some tools here on the next page, but you can't measure what you don't track. So keep track of everything and see if you're spending too much going out or what have you. Familiarize yourself with that numbers rules page that I put together for you. Just really trying to, press to you guys. We've all seen it. We've seen pharmacists, we've seen doctors that we work with that just, they live paycheck to paycheck at the end of the month, even though they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So make sure you're following those number rules to keep yourself within the limits and saving appropriately. And then be aggressive, especially if you're going on the full repayment now amount, not the PSLF route. You want to, just try to hammer it down like Brandon has with his loans. And then use a combination of payoff strategies. Brandon kind of talked about the snowball effect, and there's a couple of different things to do there. And Brandon moved us to the next slide. So for some references,
I thought it was my cue.
No, yeah, you're good. So this is some of the podcasts and shows and things that we watch and some tools that we put together that have really helped us out. So you're a financial pharmacist. That's a good resource that Brandon threw out there. I've seen a couple of their blog posts and a couple of their things they put out. Money Guy show on the lower right there. They're awesome. They do personal finance stuff. Some people you may have heard of Dave Ramsey. That's kind of another one. Money Guy goes a little bit more in depth, and it's for somewhat higher earners. Dave Ramsey tries to get people a lot of times out of debt, but it's still a good listen. But Money Guy does a good job. And then you got the White Coat Investor. They have a lot of tips and tricks and tutorials for high income earners in the healthcare field. And then YNAB, it's You Need a Budget. So this is something that I use. It's awesome. I have it on my phone. I can do it on my computer. My wife has it on her phone. So it auto pulls in our transactions from our cards and we throw it right into different budgets and we can see everything, how much we've allotted for each category. So if you're really struggling with budgeting, that might be an app to check out. And then Mint has kind of the same thing. These are there's tons of resources out there, guys. There's even resources on like Vanguard or Fidelity, all those kind of, big brokerage account platforms. They have a ton of free resources out there. And then I don't know if I'm old. Is Reddit still a thing for everyone or is it just for old people now? But Reddit has a good personal finance forum. So if you go to r/personal finance, they have a whole algorithm of like, okay, I have X amount to save. What do I do first? And then it kind of walks you through, do emergency fund, pay off high interest loans, go to your 403B. Okay, consider a Roth IRA. And it kind of walks you through kind of just like a a game board map of where to put your next dollar that you want to save. So I'd plug Reddit as well.
Yeah. No, appreciate everybody's time here. We wanted to make sure we still had some time at the end for questions. We wanted to make sure that we kind of give a decent overview, showcase that there are multiple different routes to getting debt free. And it also depends on your own goals. And so, David and I are both within the next year going to be wiping those clean. And we're not trying to scare anybody, right? You guys are pharmacists, going to be pharmacists, going to be phenomenal pharmacists. It's just a matter of I've got friends that I graduated with that are fine paying their whatever they graduated with for 10 years. That's fine. That's their prerogative. I check every couple of months. I love your financial pharmacist. I check every couple of months and see where the interest rates are at. If they change in 6 months from now, I'm going to refinance, even though I'm going to pay it off pretty soon. So you just got to have a gauge, just like you're having a gauge on a budget. You're having a gauge on your public student loan forgiveness. It's all about awareness. So
Guys, we're just scratching the surface here. So make sure if this stuff interests you, make sure you read up and go to those blogs and resources, because this is just the surface. And even though we took 45 minutes going through the presentation, I mean, this is very surface level stuff. So if you're liking what you're hearing here, make sure you check those resources out. And then, does anyone have any specific questions? I know I have some time to answer.
Anybody have? And we threw up our contact information. Feel free to reach out. Gosh, if you're like, man, Dave and I are both very transparent about our processes, in our journeys, and we want to make sure we're sharing that and that you guys feel very, very empowered and enabled to tackle the student loans you're going to tackle. There's no such thing as a dumb question. You can type it in the chat. Oh, there we go. We got someone coming off mute.
Well, funny you say that. I was literally going to say, I don't know if this is a silly question,
Bam.
but well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to both of you. I really appreciated all the information that you gave out to us. My question was I think David touched on it with, is it PSLF?
Yep, PSLF, yep.
So if you started that and it wasn't working out for you, or I don't know where the world's going to end up later, but could you transition from PSLF to refinancing? Because I know with the refinancing, if you pick that route, you're kind of not allowed to go back into PSLF.
Correct. So yep, you can always leave there's no, they just keep track of your payments. And if you work for a qualifying employer, there's no, you're not in anything per se. They'll transfer your loans to a company called Mohila. They have the current government contract for PSLF. So whether you're with Great Lakes or Nelnet or any of these other companies, they'll transfer your loan to Mohila because they service the PSLF program. But there's nothing tying you into the program per se. You can, especially if you change jobs or you lose your job, you could become unqualifying. So you can always get out of it, but like we harped on before, you can't get back in. So if you refinance and go with a private company, you can't go back into the government loans. And when we were talking as well, due to the unfortunate circumstances of COVID, I was actually very fortunate because I didn't make any payments during the whole freeze for 3 years. So I got 36 payments out of that 120, $0 payments that qualified. That was a benefit of having government loans because Sally Mae or these private lenders or PenFed, I know my wife went through, there's a bunch of them. They still wanted to collect because they're a private company. So you weren't covered by that government benefit. So, not that we're hoping that another pandemic or something crazy happens, but there is some protections. If you lose your job or if something comes up, you can go on a deferment. The private companies, they want their money and they don't care what's going on really. So.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and we'll make sure to add that to the slide deck that you can
for sure
you can be in PSLF and then refinance and go to private. You just can't go the other route.
Okay, thank you.
What else? There's got to be more questions. Budgeting, personal finance.
Yeah, I got a question. So I'm sorry for reference. I'm a P3. I've been listening to your financial pharmacist. I'm about 50 episodes in. So I'm starting to 2018, right? So that's where I'm at on that. But I'm curious how you guys avoided that lifestyle creep. I know you gave a lot of tips on that, but any personal things? I know in your financial pharmacist, they talk a lot about like finding your why you want to, be financially independent and successful. But I don't know if you guys had any tips.
Yeah, love your financial pharmacist. I am the budget Nazi in my household, and so it is very much my main goal is to get out of debt on student loans, because that is just chunking away at me every single month. And so that's my why. I want to do that. David's got other reasons and how he can maneuver, but for me, I have not even started a 529 plan for the kids. I am like snowballing these student loans to just knock them out, and then I can go about the other routes. Now I still have stuff going toward retirement, HSA, some of that stuff, because there's a good balance there. But um, I'll say that, and I drive a newer truck, and I'm in a newer house. And so it was really during the pandemic that the rates are right on both the truck and the house that allowed for that. But it's all analyzing your picture and knowing your why, 1000%. And my why is I just need to get out of student loan debt so that I can take my, $2,300 a month that I'm paying towards student loans, and then I can take that and do fun things with it and start adding more toward 529 and adding more toward a 401k. You're reducing your taxable income. You can buy a golf cart. I mean, then you can start being like a pharmacist, right? Like people think, oh, you're a pharmacist, you make all this money. And it's like, boy, like if you only knew how much I graduated with student loans. So it is just analyzing, making sure you're on the same page as your spouse. I'll throw that out there as well. And my wife is a big supporter, and I still have the same basketball shoes I've worn for the last 12 years. They're not
Yep.
broke. I wear shirts from high school still. There's no reason for me to change things. So I grew up that way. My wife's on the same page, and our goal is aligned to make sure we're getting out of debt.
And I would say I'm the same way. So definitely echo being on the same page as your partner. My wife, I do all the budgeting for us. She kind of keeps track of, I got to pester her to put her Target receipts in or whatever. I'm like, this makeup, what is this? And so, but she's totally on the same page with all the finances. Sometimes she harps on me and says, what do we need all this money for? When we retire, from what we're putting into all these different accounts and stuff. And I said, what do you want right now? Like, name something that you want right now and she's like, I can't think of anything, because we still are able to do, we go on a couple of vacations every year. We're still able to do and still save all this. In our day-to-day life, like we don't go get fast food every day. We make sure to keep that down because that gets very expensive. And just tracking it, even with us tracking it, we creep up $100 some months of just fast food because we're busy or something. We're like, okay, that could have went into an investment account or something. We need to try a little harder this month to go to Aldi and make meals a couple more times. But that all goes to my why, why do I do all this? I want the flexibility. So and I tell my wife, we might not have all of this money, when we actually retire with all the compounding growth. If we decide that we want to retire at 50 versus 65, we might have to, it might be, half as much because it doesn't have as much time to grow. But I want that flexibility to be able to retire or work, just because I want, to get out of the house, not because I have to work. So that's kind of my why for my future. And like Brandon said, I just had a baby, so starting to contribute to her future for saving for college. College calculators now, when my 10-month-old daughter gets to go to college for in-state in Illinois, it's projected that undergrad alone is going to be $400,000. It's good to start when they're right out of the womb to start saving for them if you can. So yeah, so that's crazy, but that's my why. I just want to set up a good future for us and for my family, and have flexibility in there.
And you can see that either path can lead you that way, and that's the picture we want to paint. And even though we're both very regimented and we're looking at our budgets, David mentioned he goes on vacations. Like I'm not so much a stickler on we can't do this or that. It's just like let's put things into perspective. So like we can still do fun things. We're going to Florida in 2 weeks. Like, we can you don't have to be all in of being so aggressive where you can't even do anything else. There's a really, really good mix. And I love the point that Pamela put in there is it's interest. Interest is a killer. I would do not want to give away free dollars. Are you kidding me? I just so it is the more I can pay down interest and not have it go, just somebody taking dollars out of my account. That fuels
You
it.
want it the opposite way. You want the compounding growth. So
Yeah,
you want to be the
exactly.
one taking the interest. So all the high yield savings like Ally checking accounts, and savings accounts. Ally savings account, I think, is at like 4.5% or something that you're getting paid for having your savings in there. And then on top of that, if you're investing in the stock market, the S&P, if you look back, over 100 years, the average is about 8 to 10% per year. So if that's what you're making, you're not paying the credit card company, 25% APR, So
I love the
these are
question.
just some blunders to avoid. So yeah, but good question, Cole.
I'm good to stay on if there's other questions. I feel like
I have a PGY2 resident in critical care with me right now, so he's managing the floor. So I still got a
perfect.
couple minutes as well.
David and I just felt like this wasn't talked enough about in school, and that it's confusing. I didn't mention this, and I've got an economics bachelor degree as well. Like, and this is still confusing. Like that just shows you how like overwhelming this can feel. And so don't take 45 or an hour of a discussion and feel like you're a pro or like we're even pros. Like David and I are always listening to stuff, learning stuff. We chatted today, and he's like, "Hey, did you consider doing this, this, and this?" And I was like, didn't know that. So it was like, yeah, we're always learning.
And that's the thing is
some
learning amongst each other, and then finding a friend that's actually interested in this stuff. My neighbor is actually the same way, and like we just stand out in the driveway, after we're cutting the grass, and we're like, "Oh, how's the?" That's how I show I'm old, right? I'm like, "How's the kids 529 or whatever? Did you do that? Yeah, it's almost the end of the year, or whatever." But yeah, finding other people that listen to these podcasts because we all only have so much time. But like me and Brandon just meeting earlier, I gave him a tip that I had learned. And guys, start small, okay? Like start at the budget level. Even as a student, you can budget and make sure that you're not going further and further into debt. Like Brandon, I still wear like the same t-shirts. My wife's like constantly trying to buy me some Old Navy shirts. She's like, "You're wearing like old raggedy Hawkeye shirt." When I was in town, I went to homecoming. I just bought my first 2 new Hawkeye shirts, I think in like 6 or 7 years. So it's definitely possible.
Yeah. Cole,
Go ahead, Cole.
The floor is yours, man.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I believe we just saw some comments about it because my question was about financial advisors and is it something that you're doing on your own? Do you have a financial advisor? And if you do, are you looking for a specific type? I know in your financial pharmacist, I believe they use they talk about the fee only and that type of thing. So if you guys could just touch on that.
Yeah, I'll be really easy. I do this on my own. This is me just running with it. I think a financial advisor can really give the right guidance, making sure they are a fee only and a fiduciary, so they got responsibility to do what's best interest of you, and then fee only, not paying a percentage of your account or what they're managing. But yeah, I just bootstrap and I do this on my own.
Yeah, I do it on my own too, and again, if it's overwhelming, I've been listening to like financial podcasts for probably 5 years now. A lot. Like my wife is so sick of hearing about finances. Like in the car, wherever we're going, I'm always listening. So all this knowledge kind of came from a long time of listening. So I do it myself. I will say that I know like the Money Guy show that I was telling you about to kind of tune into. They recommend once you get to like usually we're saying 500,000. Now they're saying about 750,000 in investable assets is when it kind of crosses the bridge to, make the fees and everything worth it. So because before that, I'll just tell you what I do, but like I just do broad index funds. So like me and Brandon said, we can't give you guys investment advice. So do whatever you want. What I personally do is pretty easy before you're at that level to not really screw anything up if you just throw it into the whole entire market and let it kind of grow. But once you start hitting that, $500,000, $700,000 in investable assets, then you're going to want to try to, there's more strategies that can come into play that don't really affect you if you only have a small amount of money invested. So up until that level. However, the other thing to consider is how is your total picture going? So, we touched on a lot of stuff today. We didn't even get into like insurance and protecting your house, protecting your life, getting life insurance, which I would recommend you guys getting, if you're still healthy right now as a student, be very cheap for you because you're really young and, you don't know what your future brings. But you also got to consider if you have like anything you want to protect right now, especially if you're starting a family, you want to take that into account, look into like term life insurance. These are things that like we didn't even get a chance to talk about, and umbrella insurance in case you get sued for, who knows what. These are all kinds of things that I have. And then just having our baby, me and my wife just met with attorneys this year about a trust and like what happens with all of this if me and my wife were to die in a car accident or something. Who's going to take care of the baby? Who gets all the house, the money, and all that stuff? That's a financial advisor should be looking at that whole picture for you, not just the finance part, but helping you. They might not be the ones to do a will or a trust or the insurance products. In fact, you probably want to find one that doesn't sell that stuff because they're just giving you advice. They're not trying to sell you something. And then, that whole financial picture, make sure you're protected and saving. So that's another reason why a financial advisor might be helpful, because it might help you see those risk blind spots that you might have.
I can touch base on the financial advisor thing. I think too, you can always like talk to financial advisors and they'll give you free advice. You don't have to go with them. I can tell you that I'm not at the level that what Dave is saying, like $750,000 for financial, to have a financial advisor. And like maybe Kayla can say some stuff too, but I think where it's helped is it does like they do look at your overall picture, and I've talked to various ones about what we're doing. So I guess like an example is, right now, like, okay, I'm asking, should I take some of my money out? Because CDs are like at 4 or 5% right now. And should I invest there? And they're like, well, no, not really, because like, let's start a retirement account. And he started a retirement account for us. And move some of our stuff over from a previous whole life account. And what we can do with that is like, if we have money invested in there, we can actually take a loan from that account. And that loan is only like 2% interest. So instead of taking a different loan, like say you want a car, you want to take out, okay, hey, like I need, $40,000 for a car. You can take it from the retirement fund and have 2% interest for however long you want to pay it back, versus like the interest rates that are at like 8 to 10%, like now for cars. So like that's the way you can save money, and like they can give you advice on those types of things. The fees are typically like for everything we do. Sorry, Mike, Bradley's reading in the backyard. He's being a good, or back behind me, so hopefully you can't hear him, but he's being a good student. Like I guess, where was I going with this? So I guess like they just kind of keep you on track, and like, oh, the fees are 1% of what you make. So if they're making you, like, say last year in stocks, they made, I don't know, 16 or 17% in stocks. They get 1% of that, but it's still more money than I would have made. And it's smarter than like I would have been able to invest my money. And like, I still chose something like that was conservative as well. I'm like, I don't want to do high risk. I don't want to do low risk, but something in the middle, and that you can't really predict what's going to happen, but like, they're going to know a lot more about that stuff than I am. So that's where I see the benefit in a financial advisor.
I appreciate Pamela's input on this too, because like me and Brandon are like super nerds. Obviously, if you guys couldn't tell by this whole hour how excited we are talking about this stuff. If you're someone that's like tuning in and you're like, yeah, like I'll work on my budget and get that squared away, but like Dave's talking all these numbers of kind of like 403B. I don't have time to do that. I want to go watch Desperate Housewives or whatever the current show is. I don't know. But if you're not interested at all in any of this, then maybe a financial advisor is good for you because not everyone's going to be as interested as me and Brandon.
I'm going to have to echo that. I have a financial advisor simply because I don't even really want to know. I don't want to have to deal with it. So, but I would also say that investments can be a completely different topic because there's so many different ways to invest your money. My biggest suggestion would be to get a Roth IRA, a couple of them, maybe, I don't know. And you can contribute to it every year, and it doesn't matter if you contributed to it 1 year or not the next year, or just you can do it as you want to do it. And then my other suggestion would be since you all are younger, to be a little bit more aggressive if you want to invest than if later on down the road when you are wanting to retire, that's when you don't want to be. You want to be more conservative. So that's just what I've learned.
And just to echo off what Kayla just said, so in one of the shows, they always emphasize this, and I know a lot of you guys are younger. If you invest $1 when you're 20 and just take a conservative estimate, if you just look at the whole market, like we were talking about 8 to 10%, if you put $1 in when you're 20, it will be $88 at 65. So that just shows you like the power of the compounding growth that the credit card companies are working against you. That just shows you an example of something pretty conservative estimate of just putting in $1 can turn into 88, almost $100 by the time you're 65. So that's why these things are important. And like Kayla said, if you put it into a Roth, it's actually tax free. So read up on all these accounts, see all the benefits of them. It does get to be fun, especially once in the beginning you'll realize that your money kind of grows slow, but you get employer matches and stuff. It grows slow, but then you'll hit this point to where you'll look into your accounts and you'll say, oh my gosh, I made like what I make in 1 day at work, like today, because the stock market went up a certain amount, and then pretty soon you'll make what you make in a week, maybe depending on your investments, and then a month, and that's the flexibility that you're getting at some point, is that you're seeing how much this goes. But it does take a little bit of time in the beginning to get things rolling. But once they start, I'm finally reaching a point to where I could kind of log into my accounts and say, whoa, like that's crazy. My money's working harder than I am kind of now. So I know it's hard to see as a student right now.
Are there any other questions at all?
Do you guys find that this was helpful? I don't know. I know you guys have questions and stuff potentially, but did you guys find this helpful? Hopefully me and Brandon just was way too above your heads, or something you want to hear more of, or any feedback real quick. I know you guys might give feedback later, but
yeah, I'll chime in. I found this extremely helpful. I really appreciated this discussion. I feel like, kind of like you had mentioned, we don't get a lot of this discussion throughout school. So it can be really scary and daunting, I think, as a student. But this definitely, I feel more confident just based on after these 45 minutes. So thank you.
One bite at a time.
Yeah.
I wanted to comment on that as well. Finances was something I fought really hard to get into engagement week. It was something that was presented like months into the engagement course. So I would like to see that continue more in the future, just especially because I think it's so good to have that information before you take out all your loans and try to make all those decisions. I don't know if you guys would be interested, and I can talk to Dr. A about it in the future, but trying to maybe get a supplement that I think they already have like an hour built in through the university financial services, but just maybe being able to speak on some of these topics if you guys would be interested in that as the Genesis board.
Yeah. We'll take that back to Kayla and say, how can we get plugged in? But the feedback that we
We'll
get
make it happen.
Yeah, the feedback that we get from you guys helps drive that. So, and it's only we gave an hour and we talked about student loans and budgeting. We didn't even get into a whole host of things to consider. So, just try to give a good overview. So, if there's an appetite, by all means, we'll make sure we as a Genesis board, I feel like that's a really good spot for us to help out with.
Yeah, I think it would be just like just thinking broadly to be beneficial, like to keep it a good overview and provide those resources. Like even that resource slide you had at the end is something that I'm going to be trying to check out because I just as a student, I don't even know where to start sometimes. And so, you know, or hearing your personal stories makes it kind of makes those numbers more real. So I just want to say I appreciate you guys' time and thank you.
We were where you were at one point.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I was just going to say, you're not alone in that, Cole. So, well, with that, thank you, Brandon and David, for presenting. And students, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any additional questions or additional topics, please feel free to send me an email. I would be very happy to look into that. Next week, we do have another SuccessRx that's going to be presented. Invite, I'm not sure if it's been sent out yet. If not, it'll go out tomorrow. It is going to be on, oh, give me 1 second here. Developing confidence, how to be confident yet humble. So we hope you can join us on that one. I will send out the information tomorrow. But with that, I hope you all have a great night. Thanks for joining.
have a good one, guys.
Thanks,
Sorry for
everybody.
the technical difficulties.